My 6-year-old daughter asked one question at our dinner table on a Tuesday night in November, and in 9 words, she said the thing I had been swallowing for 45 days. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to where this started, because if you're going to understand why those 9 words cracked everything open, you need to understand what those 45 days actually cost. In dollars, in sleep, in the slow erosion of the life my husband and I had spent 7 years building together. My name is Noelle. I'm 32 years old. I work as a patient billing coordinator at a regional hospital outside Nashville 5 days a week, and on weekends I run a small Etsy shop selling custom printable planners and wall art. Together, those 2 income streams average about $52,000 a year. My husband Adam brings in around $64,000 as a logistics coordinator for a regional freight company. Together we sit just under 6 figures. Nothing glamorous, nothing to be careless about, but solid. Intentional. We bought our house in Murfreesboro, Tennessee in the spring of 2021. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, gray vinyl siding, a covered back porch Adam screened in himself over one very ambitious summer weekend. We paid $292,000 for it, fixed rate, 3.4%. The day we signed, I sat in the parking lot of the title company and called my mom from the car because I couldn't drive yet. My hands were shaking too much. Our daughter, Penny, was born 4 months after we moved in. She came into the world with her father's jaw and my stubbornness and this particular way of tilting her head sideways when she's trying to work something out, like a golden retriever making sense of a strange sound. By the time she turned 3, she was having full conversations. By 4, she was asking questions that embarrassed people at the grocery store. She has always paid attention to everything. Now, I need to tell you about my sister-in-law, because nothing that happened makes any sense without her. Gail is Adam's younger sister. She's 20, 29, almost exactly 5 years younger than him, and she has the kind of energy that fills a room in a way that can feel like warmth if you're in the right mood and like a gas leak if you're not. She's beautiful, genuinely beautiful, the kind of effortless that makes people look twice. And she has never in her adult life figured out what to do with that, or anything else she's been given. She's had more jobs than I have fingers. Nail technician, Instacart driver, front desk at a gym that eventually closed, something involving social media management for a friend's business that lasted about 2 months. She has a daughter, Ava, who is 8 and brilliant and deserves better than the instability she's been handed. Ava's father is out of the picture, mostly. He sends money when he remembers, which is to say, sporadically and rarely the full amount. Adam and Gail's dad walked out when Adam was 13. Their mom, Linda, worked retail management for years, long hours, worn down, stretched thin. Adam stepped into the gap. He made sure Gail had lunch money. He went to her middle school band concerts. He helped her with algebra. He became, in every practical sense, her co-parent before he was old enough to vote. That history is iron inside him. It doesn't bend. I understood it, and for years it cost me nothing to respect it. Gail's chaos stayed at a manageable distance. She'd call Adam crying about some guy, and he'd talk her through it. She'd need $200 for a car repair, and he'd send it before she finished asking. Standard brother stuff. Annoying in the way that only happens a few times a year, easy enough to absorb. Then in mid-September, everything changed. Gail had been living with her boyfriend, a man named Cliff, in a 2-bedroom apartment over in Smyrna for about 14 months. I want to be fair and say I don't know everything about what happened there. What I know is that Cliff ended things and asked her to leave, and she had 72 hours to be out. Adam's phone rang on a Thursday evening. I was at the kitchen table helping Penny practice writing the letter Q, which she found deeply offensive as a letter. I could hear Adam's voice change in the living room, that particular tightening he gets when he's bracing for something. He came to the kitchen doorway. "Gail needs a place to stay," he said. "Cliff ended things. She has to be out by Sunday." I looked up from cue practice. "Sunday," I said, "as in 3 days." "Yeah." "Where are she and Ava going to go?" He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me, and I already knew. "It would just be temporary," he said. 2 weeks, maybe 3. I looked at Penny, who had abandoned the letter Q, and was now drawing what appeared to be a horse wearing a hat. The guest room. My guest room, which I used as an overflow office for my Etsy business. My light box was in there, my shipping supplies. 3 bankers' boxes of organized files. "How temporary, specifically?" I asked. "She just needs to find something, get a deposit together. She has some leads." I dried my hands on a dish towel. I took a breath. I thought about Adam at 13, packing his little sister's lunch every morning. 3 weeks, I said, and she helps with groceries. He nodded like I'd handed him something precious. "Absolutely, I'll tell her." I moved my light box to the closet in our bedroom. I stacked my shipping boxes in the garage. I put fresh sheets on the guest bed, a folded blanket at the foot, a small nightstand lamp, so it felt like a room and not a storage space. For Ava, I left a box of colored pencils and a sketchbook on the dresser, because Penny had told me once that Ava likes to draw. They arrived Sunday afternoon. Gail, Ava, 4 duffel bags, a portable clothing rack, 2 tote bags of snacks, and Gail's ring light on a tripod that she was apparently using for her TikTok. "Noelle, I swear to God," Gail said at the door, "you are literally saving our lives. 3 weeks and we are out of your hair." I smiled. I helped carry the portable clothing rack through the front door. The first week was fine. Gail kept the room reasonably tidy. Ava was quiet and polite at meals and said, "Thank you" every time without being prompted. She and Penny played in the backyard after school. Gail mentioned she'd applied for 2 jobs, something at a medical billing office and a position at a daycare. She cooked dinner twice. Once a sheet pan chicken thing that was actually good. Once spaghetti with jarred sauce that Penny ate 2 bowls of. I wanted to believe this was going to work. The second week, things shifted. Gail stopped mentioning job applications. She stopped mentioning apartments. She started sleeping past 10 on her days off. I'd come home from the hospital on Tuesday afternoon to find the kitchen exactly as I'd left it in the morning, except for a new layer of dishes in the sink and an open bag of Penny's after-school pretzels on the counter, half empty. On Thursday of week 2, I noticed Gail's ring light had been set up in the corner of the guest room where she'd pushed my remaining craft bins against the wall. I didn't say anything. On Friday, she had her nails done. Gel, full set, with some kind of small floral design on the ring fingers. She held out her hands when she got home the way you do when you're proud of them. So cute, right? The place on Medical Center Parkway does them for $43. I had a gift card from forever ago. I said they were cute, because they were cute. But something in my chest went very still. Day 14 came and went, without a single conversation about leaving. Day 16. I came home and found Gail had reorganized the refrigerator. She'd moved the things we keep on the door, Penny's apple juice, Adam's collection of hot sauces, to the back and put her own things at eye level. Ava's juice boxes front and center, a container of Gail's meal prep salads taking up an entire shelf. I moved everything back at 11 o'clock that night while Adam was asleep. Day 19. I opened the cabinet under the bathroom sink to get a new bar of soap and found it completely reorganized. My things pushed to the back behind Gail's curly hair products, a diffuser she'd apparently bought and installed in my bathroom, and 2 bottles of a luxury dry shampoo I recognized from a grocery aisle. $16 each. $16 each, when she couldn't contribute to groceries. I sat on the edge of the tub for a minute, just sat there. Day 22. This is the one that made something in me go very cold. I was sorting through the mail when I found an envelope addressed to Gail. Return address was a monthly beauty subscription service, $38 a month. The address on the label was mine, our house. She was having subscription boxes shipped here. I set the envelope on the kitchen counter and stared at it for a long time. That evening, I showed Adam the numbers. I'd been tracking every extra expense since they moved in, the way I track everything. I pulled up my spreadsheet at the kitchen table while Penny was asleep, and the murmur of Gail's television drifted through the guest room wall. Groceries were up 40%. I was feeding 4 people instead of 2.5. Electric was up. Water was up. I'd bought Ava a pair of sneakers when Gail mentioned her only pair was getting too small. $18 at Target. I'd bought extra laundry detergent twice. I'd paid for a pizza order Gail put in through my app. And now the subscription box, using my address as if it were hers. 31 days. Over $2,000 in additional household costs. I need you to talk to her, I said. The 3 weeks are up. She hasn't mentioned leaving. She's having mail delivered here. Adam rubbed the back of his neck. She's trying, Noelle. Is she? Because she told me day 1 she had job leads, and I haven't heard anything about that since day 4. She's going through a hard time. The breakup with Cliff really messed her up. I understand that. But Adam, she had her nails done. She reorganized my refrigerator without asking. She's treating this house like it's hers. She doesn't mean it like that. I'm not asking about what she means. I'm asking about what's happening. He was quiet. Set a deadline, I said, a real one. I'll talk to her, he said. He didn't. I watched the days pass and waited for evidence that he had, and it never came. Day 26. Gail asked, while casually pouring herself coffee in my kitchen on a Sunday morning, if she and Ava could stay through the holidays. Said it like she was asking about the weather. She just wanted to make sure Ava had a stable Christmas. She was so close to getting her finances sorted out. She just needed a little more runway. The holidays were 11 weeks away. I said I'd think about it. I went to the garage and sat in the car for 6 minutes and did not cry. Day 31. Ava left a wet towel on Penny's bedroom floor. When I mentioned it to Gail, she laughed and said, "Girls like the 2 of us were sharing some joke about daughters being messy." Penny had never left a wet towel on any floor in her life. She was 6 and she hung her towel on the hook because I had taught her to. Day 38. Penny asked me at bedtime why Ava got to stay up until 9 when Penny's bedtime was 8:30. Ava's a little older bug, I said. But it's our house, Penny said. She wasn't being bratty. She was genuinely confused. You make the rules at our house. I do, I said. She tilted her head sideways, thinking. Okay, she said, and closed her eyes. I lay awake afterward with a stone sitting in my chest. Day 45. A Tuesday. I was making dinner, baked salmon, rice. The broccoli Penny eats when it's roasted but not when it's steamed, a whole system I've developed over 6 years. When Gail came into the kitchen with Ava beside her, I recognized the energy immediately. It was the same energy as the morning she'd asked about Christmas. Slightly too casual, eyes slightly too wide. So I've been thinking, she said. I kept my attention on the salmon. About what? The timing of everything. Ava's really settled into her school situation here, and I have a couple of real opportunities I'm looking at, and I feel like if I can just get truly stable, it would be so much better for both of us. For Ava especially. How much longer are you thinking, Gail? Maybe through the end of the year? January at the latest. January. We were in November. That was 2 to 3 additional months on top of 45 days already spent. I put the oven mitt down. I turned around. And that's when I saw Adam standing in the kitchen doorway behind her, already nodding. That quiet, pre-decided nod, the one that meant he had already agreed before the conversation started. They had talked about it in the guest room, settled it between themselves, and sent Gail in to deliver the news, while Adam stood behind her as a silent co-signer. My husband had made a decision about my house without me. I opened my mouth. And then Penny walked in from the living room, still wearing her school sneakers, which I kept forgetting to remind her to take off at the door. She looked at her dad. She looked at me. She looked at Gail and Ava. She was taking inventory the way she always does, that quiet little assessment she makes of every room she enters. And then she looked up at Adam and said 9 words. "Daddy, if we're tight on money, why does Aunt Gail's nails always look nice?" No drama in it, no accusation. She had heard me use the phrase tight on money 3 weeks earlier when she'd asked for a new craft kit at Michael's, and she had filed it away somewhere in that careful little brain of hers. And now she was simply connecting the dots the way 6-year-olds do when they have been paying more attention than you ever intended them to. The kitchen went completely silent. Gail's face went red from the collar up. Adam looked at the floor. Ava tugged on Gail's sleeve and whispered, "Mom!" Gail took Ava's hand and said, quietly and tightly, "Come on, sweetheart," and walked back down the hallway. The guest room door didn't slam. It closed with a small, definitive click that was somehow worse than a slam would have been. I crouched down in front of Penny. "You didn't do anything wrong," I said. "Go wash your hands, dinner's almost ready." She looked at me with that sideways tilt. "Is everybody mad?" "Nobody's mad at you." She nodded, satisfied, and padded off to the bathroom. Adam crossed to the counter and stood there with his hands flat on the granite, not looking at me. "She didn't mean it like that," he said finally. "Penny? No, she was just asking a question." "Gail." "I know." "Are you going to use what a 6-year-old said as?" "I don't need ammunition, Adam. The numbers are the ammunition. 45 days. Nearly $3,000 in additional household costs. Subscription boxes shipped to my address. A refrigerator reorganized without my permission." I paused. "And Ava has been telling Penny that the guest room belongs to her." He looked up at that. "Yeah," I said. "Your niece has been telling our daughter that the guest room is her room. Penny mentioned it to me last week. I didn't want to make a big thing of it then." Adam was quiet for a long time. "I'll figure it out," he said. "You've said that for over a month. I need you to actually do something." He grabbed his jacket from the kitchen chair. "Where are you going?" I asked. "I need some air." The front door opened and closed. His truck backed out of the driveway. I stood in my kitchen, my house, my mortgage, and listened to the sound of Gail's television through the wall, some competition show with swelling dramatic music, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not anger exactly. Something flatter and more permanent than anger. The particular feeling of a thing that has been bending for too long, finally finding its limit. After I put Penny to bed, I called my mom. She picked up on the second ring. "Tell me everything," she said. I did. The full version, starting from the Sunday they arrived. My mom, Donna, taught 4th grade for 24 years before she retired, and she has this particular gift for cutting straight through noise. She did not interrupt me once. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Whose name is on that mortgage?" "Mine and Adam's." "So you own that house?" "Yes." "Then, why are you acting like a guest in it?" That sentence sat on my chest like a hand pressing down. "Donna," I started. I sometimes call her by her name when I'm being serious. "I know," she said. "You're being fair. You're being patient. You're being the bigger person. But baby, I did not raise you to be a doormat, and I'll be damned if I watch you become one at 32. She told me about a friend of hers named Rhonda, a paralegal, who could help me put something in writing. Not a divorce proceeding, not a formal legal battle, a house guest agreement. Timelines, financial contributions, house rules, a firm move-out date with actual consequences. Something Adam couldn't wave away with the phrase "she's trying." Something in writing, my mom said, is the only language people take seriously when they've decided to be comfortable. I wrote down Rhonda's number. Adam came home after midnight. He sat on the edge of the bed in the dark and said he'd parked in a Walgreens lot for a while and called his buddy Phil from work. "Phil told me I was being an idiot," he said. "Phil's a smart guy." He almost smiled. "I keep seeing her at 9 years old, you know? When our dad left, she cried for 3 days straight and then just stopped. Like she made a decision to stop feeling it, and I never wanted to be one more person who left her alone with that." "I know," I said. "I've always known that about you. It's part of why I love you." But Adam, Penny is 7 years away from 9, and right now she's standing in our kitchen asking why money is tight while her aunt gets manicures. I need you to hear that. He was quiet for a long moment. "What do you need from me?" he asked. "A move-out date, in writing, with consequences, and I need you to actually enforce it this time." "Okay," he said. "Not I'll figure it out, okay." "Okay," he said again, and this time it landed differently. "I mean it." The next morning I called Rhonda. She was warm and direct and took maybe 15 minutes to email me a template for a house guest agreement. Move-out date, December 1st, 18 days away. Weekly contribution to household expenses. $80. No packages shipped to the address. Common spaces cleaned within 24 hours. Children follow the same house rules as Penny. Both parties sign, guest signs. Everyone knows the terms and the consequences. I printed 2 copies. I put them in a manila folder. That evening, after dinner, I settled both girls in Penny's room with the iPad and a bowl of popcorn. Told them it was movie night, a treat. So they were thrilled. I closed Penny's door and walked to the kitchen. Adam sat across from me at the table. Gail sat next to him, arms already crossed, reading the room before I'd said a single word. "What is this?" she asked when I opened the folder. "A house guest agreement. It covers the terms of your continued stay. Move-out date, financial contribution, house rules." She picked up her copy. Her expression climbed steadily, from dismissive to genuinely alarmed. "December 1st? That's 18 days. It's already more than 2 weeks past what we originally agreed to. I cannot find an apartment in 18 days. You've had 45 days and haven't looked at a single listing in over a month. I've been going through something devastating, Noelle. This breakup, I understand that. I genuinely do. And I've tried to give you space to process it. But the guest room is my office. Our daughter thinks your daughter is moving into her home permanently. And I've absorbed nearly $3,000 in extra household costs without a single dollar in return. I said it at the same calm volume I use for everything. No raised voice, no quaver. Just facts, in order, like a balance sheet. This agreement gives you 18 more days. A real timeline. something to work with. She turned to Adam. The appeal in her eyes was unmistakable. "You're going to let her do this?" Adam put his copy of the agreement flat on the table. "She's right, Gail." Gail blinked. "She's right," he said again. "We said 2 weeks. It's been 45 days. You used Noelle's account to order food. You had subscription boxes shipped here. You reorganized her refrigerator. Ava told Penny this guest room belongs to her." He said each thing quietly, evenly, the way I had given them to him the night before. "That's not visiting. That's settling in. And I let it go on too long. Because I kept not ambiance, I kept waiting for you to figure it out on your own. And I should have had this conversation 5 weeks ago. So you're choosing her over me." "I'm choosing my family." "You're my family too, Gail. That's why I'm not asking you to leave tonight. I'm giving you 18 days and a clear plan, and I will personally drive you to look at apartments this weekend. I'll cover your deposit out of my own savings if it comes to that. But Noelle and I are a team. That has been true since before you moved in, and it will be true long after." The refrigerator hummed. Down the hall, I could hear the faint sound of Penny laughing at something on the iPad. Gail looked down at the agreement for a long time. Her jaw worked. "This is humiliating," she said. "No," I said. "This is a plan. You haven't had one in 6 weeks. Now you do." She exhaled through her nose. She picked up the pen I'd placed on the table. And she signed it. Adam signed his copy. I signed both, kept one, slid Gail's across to her. I put my copy in the pantry behind the soup cans, in the folder where I keep things that matter. Gail took her copy back to the guest room. Adam and I sat at the table for a while in silence. "Thank you," he said finally, "for not making me choose between you." "I didn't make you do anything," I said. "You chose." He looked at me like he was deciding whether that was a compliment. It was. Day 3 after signing, Gail applied for 2 jobs and told me about it at breakfast, half proud and half embarrassed. Day 7. She handed me $80 in cash in an envelope she'd labeled household in slightly crooked letters. I put it in the jar on the pantry shelf without comment except thank you. Day 10. Adam drove her and Ava to see 3 apartments. 2 in Smyrna, 1 in La Vergne. She applied for a 1-bedroom in Smyrna at $950 a month, the same price point she'd mentioned on day 1, before she'd stopped mentioning anything. Day 14. A fulfillment warehouse in La Vergne called her back. $15.50 an hour, full-time, benefits after 90 days. She took it. She told me at the kitchen counter while I was making Penny's lunch, and her voice had a different quality in it than I'd heard in weeks. Something cautious and real. Day 15. The Smyrna apartment approved her. Day 17. Adam went with her to sign the lease. He paid her security deposit out of his personal savings, $950. He came home and showed me the receipt without me asking. I said nothing except that a deal was a deal. Day 18, December 1st. Gail packed her 4 duffel bags, her portable clothing rack, her ring light, Ava's backpack, the colored pencils I'd set out on the dresser on the very first day. She stood in the hallway, the same hallway where her bags had lived for the better part of 2 months, and she looked at me. "I know it wasn't easy having us," she said. "It wasn't," I said. She nodded. "I know I'm a lot." "You're capable of more than you lean into," I said. "Go build something stable for Ava." She looked surprised, like she'd braced for something harder. She hugged me, brief, slightly stiff, but real. Then she loaded her car, buckled Ava in, and pulled out of the driveway. Adam stood on the porch and watched until her taillights disappeared around the corner. When he came back inside, his eyes were red at the rims. "She's going to be okay," I said. "I know." He stood in the doorway for a moment. I spent so long being the reason she was okay. It's hard to let that be someone else's job. It's not someone else's job, I said. It's hers, and she's starting to do it. He pulled me into a hug and held on. Penny appeared at the end of the hallway in her pajamas, rabbit tucked under one arm. Is Ava gone? Yeah, Bug. They have their own place now. She considered this with her head tilted sideways. Good, she said. Can I have my bathroom counter back? Adam laughed, real laughter. Full and unguarded, the first I'd heard from him in nearly 2 months. Yes, I said, it's entirely yours. That Saturday, Adam took Penny to Target and let her pick out the large craft kit she'd been asking about since October, the one with foam sheets and glitter glue, and what appeared to be 40 varieties of sticker. $37. She carried it to the car by herself, both arms wrapped around it like it was something precious. I watched them from the kitchen window. My kitchen, my house, my family, and I felt something I hadn't felt since September. Not relief exactly, but something more solid and more earned than relief. The particular peace that comes when you stop waiting for someone else to draw the line and draw it yourself. Gail has been in her Smyrna apartment for about a month now. She texted me last week to ask how long I bake salmon at 400 degrees. I told her 20 minutes for a 1-inch fillet. She sent back a thumbs up, and a few hours later, a photo of a pretty decent-looking piece of salmon on a plate next to some rice. I sent back a thumbs up too, and I meant it. Adam and I started seeing a couples counselor, his idea, which surprised me in the best way. We go every other Wednesday. He talked in the last session about packing Gail's lunches when he was 13, and I watched him understand for what seemed like the first time that the boy who did that was a child who'd been handed too much, too young, and that the man he became had been trying to make up for it ever since, sometimes at the expense of the family he was actually building. These things don't fix like a leaky faucet, all at once and clean, but it's better, genuinely better. My extra costs spreadsheet sits in a folder on my laptop marked closed. $2,840 over 45 days. I don't look at it with bitterness anymore. I look at it the way I look at a scar, a reminder that edges are real and that you have to respect them or they will cut you. Penny asked me last week at bedtime if Aunt Gail was nice. I thought about it honestly. She's doing her best, I said. I think she's going to keep getting better at it. Penny accepted that the way she accepts most things, practically, without drama. Okay, she said. Mommy, can I have a sleepover with Ava sometime at their new house? Someday, I said, when they're settled in. She nodded and closed her eyes and was asleep in 4 minutes, her rabbit tucked under her chin, her face perfectly at peace. I stood in her doorway and thought about those 9 words she'd said without knowing what they cost or what they'd start. She hadn't been trying to be brave. She'd just been paying attention. The way she always does. And telling the truth in the clear, uncomplicated way that children do before they've learned to swallow it. I've spent a lot of time since then learning to stop swallowing mine. What I know now, in a way I didn't know before. Generosity that goes unacknowledged becomes expectation. Unnamed expectation becomes resentment. And resentment, given long enough, will make you a stranger in the house, where your name is on the deed. You built it. You earned it. Don't let anyone, not guilt, not family loyalty, not a sister-in-law's ring light set up in your home office, make you forget that. This is your home. Act like it.